Hi, this is Gene. So the purpose of this video is to show you some of the key features about how HotDocs works. After watching it, you should be able to comfortably work through a questionnaire to generate a document and get the most out of it. If you run into trouble, you should first check the FAQ page on our website. I'll continue to update this by adding videos and other guidance to address common issues. If you think some more guidance would be useful, please let me know. And if you really get stuck, please just give me a call on 021 339 527 and I'll try and help you as fast as I can. Now it's a good idea to save answers as you go up here. This means if you do get into any trouble, you can come back to where you were without having to redo work. Now the example we're going to work through is a confidentiality agreement because it contains some of the features that you're likely to come across in any document. In particular, it has the party capture information, which is to some extent the most complex process to follow, given the wide range of possible parties that might be involved, including partnerships and trusts, each of which has its own information to capture for the partners and the trustees. Now before we get started though, let's just have a quick look at the overall structure of the document, which you can see over here. This will tell you how you're tracking, where you're at in the process, how much more to go, and whether or not you've completed all the information you need to. A box like this up here shows that everything required has been entered for that section because it's all coloured in blue. A box with a red star in it shows that there's some mandatory information that needs to be captured, and you'll need to do that before you can move on to other areas. This box here has the red asterisk in it, which means we have to complete all the details, and over here you can see in red the areas that are mandatory. Now if you don't know the answer for a mandatory field, what you can do is just put in some asterisks like that, and that will get inserted into the document so that later on you can come back when you do have the information and you can make the change then. Alternatively, you could save the answers up here and come back when you do have the information. Okay, so the other thing to look for is the guidance section, which you see down here. You can expand this section or contract it depending on how much information is there and how much you need to know. It's got some specific information that relates to a particular box, will sit at the top, and information which is more general to the whole of the dialog box might be sitting below. You can also click on the little light bulbs here and view the resource for the party particularly relevant to that area. If you make a mistake at any time, you can always click on the X here to erase that answer, or if you want to start the whole thing again, you could go up to this arrow and either erase all the answers or delete a repetition. Over here you'll see there's an indented section. This is indicative of a repeated section. What it shows is that you can enter a number of parties sitting under the party details. To add more parties, it's just a question of coming down here and clicking Add Another Party. Let's do an example. Let's start by adding a company as a party. Let's call it ABC. Say it's ABC Limited. In the real world, you can click on here to go to the Company's Office website, which will enable you to search for the company's name and registration number over here, but let's just make that up for now. In the address details, these lines here are optional. You can complete them if you have the information and you want to be really clear about where the company is. This will also flow into the party address notices details. Otherwise, the only one that I've made mandatory is town or city, which I think is a useful thing to include in any event. For some of the things like email, fax, and who notices should be made attention of, as I said, you could either put asterisks if you don't know, or not applicable perhaps for something like fax. But there we go, that's our first party has been entered. For our second party, let's do a trust because they have additional information which is required. So let's call it the trust. Something like a trust deed, you don't have to put a specific date because often they're not signed or it's not 100% clear what the actual date is. So you can put a date, or you could put as near as you're able to specify it. Again, let's skip over some of the address details. Okay, so there's another area here that we have to fill in for a trust, and similarly for a partnership, and that's the trustee details. So by clicking up here, we open up yet another level of detail, and here we enter the trustees. Similar concept, you can choose what type of trustee it is, and other information relevant to that type of trustee will pop up, and you can continue adding further trustees down here. Let's say I'm one of the trustees. And let's add one more. Let's make that one a company. And that's complete. So looking over here now, we can see our parties. We've got short name ABC and the trust, and then sitting underneath the trust we've got our two trustees. Now what I've done in some of the further fields is just pre-populated them to speed them up. This is an example here of a multi-choice where you can choose more than one option, so you can choose as many of these as you like, and that's indicated by the square boxes. So if you see that, you can add as many as you like. You'll see here lots of standard multi-choice options, so these are an either or. You can choose only one of these. Up here, for the permitted purpose for the use of the confidential information, you've got a much larger text box so that you can add as much information as you need there. You can look down to the bottom of the screen for the guidance, and there is some examples there of how you might want to describe information to make sure that it goes in as clearly as possible. When we get into this area here, you can see you have all the options there for whether it's a deed or an agreement. The good news is you can jump between deed or agreement, and all references will automatically update along with the execution blocks, so that for each type of party there will be the appropriate execution block. Again, you can also go between a mutual and a one-way agreement very easily and back again. If you go for a one-way, you have to choose which of the parties is the discloser and which is the recipient, and you can choose from the names of the parties that you've entered up here. So we could say ABC will be the discloser and the trust will be the recipient. And another select as many as a relevant section. So here you might want to include a limited liability clause for the independent trustee. So having chosen the appropriate options, all we need to do now is to head to the conclusion. Before we go ahead, we have to accept the LawHawk terms and conditions. And if we're happy now, we can click on OK, and our document will be assembled. And you can download your completed document by clicking here. One thing you will need to do when your document opens is to update all of the field references, which includes your table of contents and all of the cross-references for clauses. The easiest way to do that is to do Control A and F9, and everything updates. And that's all you need to do. Thanks very much.